Happy Tuesday, boys. Back with the second part to my Dynasty quarterback rankings. We're going to be diving in to the top 6. There's a lot of interesting takes here. I know it's kind of clear and concise on a lot of Dynasty rankers. I kind of want to dive in and just give a little bit of my thoughts. So let me know down below. Feel free to like and subscribe. We're trying to grow this to 40 subscribers by the end of the week. I'm at 20. Today we are going to be diving through my top 6 Dynasty quarterbacks. My QB6 is going to be Joe Burrow. Now, I know I'm a Bengals fan. Why do I have Joe Burrow so low? I know I got a bunch of Bengals fans that watch this. So, Joe Burrow, yeah, sorry for you. The thing with Joe Burrow, I don't even have like stats to really like back up why he's like lower than some of these other guys. It's really just a preference for me on a dynasty fantasy football basis. Joe Burrow doesn't run as much as some of these other quarterbacks that are ahead of him, and that is the main reason. I want these Konami quarterbacks that take off with the ball, that get those fantasy points on the ground so they don't have to rely so much on their passing game, because especially when you're playing in these leagues, and I play in a lot of them, where it's a 6 rushing point touchdown and a 4-point passing point touchdown, cool. 3 passing touchdowns compared to 2 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. I'm taking that all day, especially when you're getting guys, like I said, Trey Lance, where they're getting anywhere between 6 to 10 carries on top of throwing the ball for 20 to 25 times. It's a game over. Of course, if we look at Joey Burrow, how he did last year, he was the quarterback 10 on a points per game basis with 20.5. And then, of course, in 2020, before he got injured, was averaging 17.9 fantasy points per game, put him in as the QB 18. Joe Burrow played really good last year. But what's the upside? I think the climb that's happened in these dynasty rankings is especially because of the fact that he looked so good in the playoffs. I mean, he did look really good in the playoffs, Joe Shiesty. But we need to just calm our expectations for fantasy, because he still is in that same type of level as a Matthew Stafford, where you're not running the ball much, but you are making plays in the pocket to then extend plays and throw the ball. Like, I get all of that. He's just not at that same level as like a Trey Lance, or who I'll talk about next as we kind of look forward. The next guy I have going forward at my QB5 is going to be Kyler Murray. Now, I will not debate you at all. Joe Burrow is a better NFL quarterback than Kyler Murray. That's cool. But the thing with Kyler Murray is he has just the ability to run. And that is exactly why I'm taking him over Joe Burrow. I don't care if you think he's not a good quarterback. If you don't think he can throw the ball. I mean, he can sling the ball, but I don't care if you think he's accurate. I don't care about any of that, because I'm playing fantasy football, and Kyler Murray for the next 5 years is going to be an elite quarterback option. He is only 24.9 years old, so he's about to turn 25 years old. There's just so much to like about him. If we look, he had 88 carries, put him as the quarterback 4 this year. He had 20 red zone carries, put him as the QB4 on a red zone carries basis. 423 rushing yards, which put him as the QB4. That is literally 42 extra fantasy football points. Had 5 rushing touchdowns, put him as the QB4. But the thing is, so he had 5 rushing touchdowns, but if we look at his passing game, it's even just more impressive, considering the fact that he had 24 passing touchdowns on top of the fact. 24 passing touchdowns, put him at QB12 on a passing touchdown game, but he also had the 5 rushing touchdowns, which definitely helps out with your fantasy points. But what's the other thing that we are not remembering is the fact that even with all those numbers, you might think the passing touchdowns are a little low. I agree. But he only played 14 games. So, plays full games. All of a sudden, the passing touchdowns go from 24 up to 28, 30. And then he has the 6 rushing touchdowns. Dude's already performing as a QB4 on a points per game basis, and he still has a little bit more ceiling. That's super exciting, and that is exactly why I have Kyler Murray there at my QB5. What else do I say? The Arizona Cardinals are building around Kyler Murray. When we look what they're doing, adding Marquise Brown in the draft, that was amazing. Of course, then having DeAndre Hopkins hopefully coming back after 6 games, especially for redraft. Great pickup this year. We'll dive in a little bit more to my redraft rankings in another video. You have DeAndre Hopkins. I know he's not going to be around for long, but let's just say this year. You have Zach Ertz. He's also getting up there in age, but they did draft Trey McBride. Rondale Moore showed a lot of promise in the first 4 games last year. Never materialized the way we all of us fantasy managers thought was going to happen due to Christian Kirk. With Christian Kirk down, Rondale Moore slides right in there with Marquise Brown. The offense is going to be super exciting. They re-signed James Conner. Darrell Williams, what a stud, too. So, Kyler Murray, this year especially, is going to be looking really good. But I think going forward, Zian's got the athleticism, project him getting those carries, being that Konami code quarterback, and that is why I have him as my QB5. We are getting to the point in these rankings where it's kind of just who do you prefer? Because a lot of these guys are super talented, and if you debatably put one guy above the other, I wouldn't be judging you. My QB4 is going to be Lamar Jackson. I think that's pretty consensus. Lamar Jackson, what a stud. I mean, of course, put up back in 2019 was the QB1 on a points per game basis with 28.2. Absolutely burst onto the scene. The year next to that put up 22.8 fantasy points per game, QB8, and then 21.1 fantasy points per game this last offseason as the QB7. But he only played 12 games because he did nick his ankle up, and it was kind of just, what can you do? Only had 16 passing touchdowns compared to the previous year where he had 26, and then the year before that had 36. Still, if we look, he had 133 carries, which put him as the QB2. Super impressive, considering the fact that he would have had more carries than Jalen Hurts if he had played all the games. Had 16 red zone carries, 767 rushing yards, which put him at QB2 for rushing yards. 767 rushing yards, which is absolutely insane, considering the fact that he still threw for 2,882 passing yards. Now, I know everyone's been hating on the way that he throws the ball, but if we're really looking forward, the thing that we need to remember about Lamar Jackson, Rashad Bateman's going to emerge. They still have Mark Andrews. I'm not worried about his passing. They will figure that out because, to be honest, they're going to have to pass the ball to win the games. But J.K. Dobbins comes back, so that will help relieve a little bit of the pressure for Lamar Jackson. If no one remembers, last offseason they lost Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins in like a week period, both torn ACLs. So both those guys will be back, as well as they signed Mike Davis. So hopefully they can get that running game back up and running. And, of course, they have the passing. So Lamar Jackson, QB4. I could see him really finishing on a year-to-year basis higher than some of the guys I'm going to mention next. But I just think those guys are a little bit safer. At this point, I'm splitting hairs. My QB3 is going to be Justin Herbert. Now, I will say this about Justin Herbert. Made the dumbest trade last year in one of my Superflex leagues. Had Justin Herbert. I'm rebuilding. Whatever. I see a prime buy candidate. One of the guys in the league put Patrick Mahomes on the block because Patrick Mahomes was underperforming. I was like, cool. Like I got a late first from one of the other guys in my league. So I was like, let me offer Justin Herbert and the 10, which ended up being the 109. For Patrick Mahomes. I thought it was a great deal because I absolutely love Patrick Mahomes. To be honest, you'll see where he's in my rankings. Personally, I have him higher, but I couldn't do it for this video because whatever. I guess I'm just giving it away at this point. Okay, I'm just going to tell you my rankings at this point because it's just like, my QB2 is also going to be Patrick Mahomes. But let me talk a little bit more about Justin Herbert. That deal was terrible because Justin Herbert is the prime young quarterback. Under age 25, Justin Herbert is my QB1. He is only 24 years old. What has he done? Last year was the QB2 on a points per game basis at 23.3. Year before that was the QB7 at 22.9. What do? They continue to just load talent around him. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. This year, they bring in Gerald Everett, which I think is going to be huge to have an athletic tight end that Justin Herbert can throw. He can throw the ball the longest. If we look at some of his stats, had the number 2 passing attempts last year at 672. Pace of play, I think that's also really impressive. They had 2.19, which was the third best pace of play the Chargers did. He had 38 passing touchdowns, which put him at QB3 on a passing touchdowns base. And if we want to look too, he does run the ball. Not as much as maybe a Josh Allen or a Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, but he did have 63 carries, which put him as the QB9. Justin Herbert, there's just a lot of good to say. I'm upset that I gave up a first. Should have just kept him with my first. Good on you, Tyler. Thanks for stealing him from me. Justin Herbert's my QB3. Not much more to go into other than dude's a baller. My QB2 is going to be Patrick Mahomes. Now, in my heart of hearts, I really wanted to put Patrick Mahomes as my QB1. I just couldn't do it. But Patrick Mahomes, what has he done? Last year, QB5 on a points per game basis, put up 22 fantasy points per game. Year before that, 25.4, QB2. He always seems to show out in true moments, of course. Last year, had 37 passing touchdowns, put him at QB4. Had 4,966 air yards, put him at QB6. 4,839 passing yards, which put him at QB4. And he did have 66 carries, which put him at QB8. So he does have a little bit of rushing upside. Patrick Mahomes, when we're talking, he's my 1B to 1A. The thing, of course, that we have to consider is that the fact that the Chiefs got rid of Tyreek Hill, so they only have Travis Kelce. Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm really hoping for big things. Big Juju fan. Not enough to say, hey, he's a replacement for Tyreek Hill. I don't even think Juju and MVS and Sky Moore are anywhere close to being the same level as Tyreek Hill. So it'll be interesting to see how Andy Reid, the mastermind, involves this whole offense, especially with Travis Kelce getting up there in age. I think that's the biggest worry for me is who's going to take the place of Travis Kelce, because now they need to replace Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and they need to do that over the next year or two. And so hopefully Sky Moore can take big steps. Hopefully Juju can take big steps, but we'll see what happens this season. Patrick Mahomes will find a way. We've seen him do it with the splits with Tyreek Hill and without Tyreek Hill are about the same, so I'm not that worried, at least on a fantasy points per game basis. But as we look dynasty-wise, we want to see an offense that is young, continuative around these quarterbacks, especially like a Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Bengals, where they're on the rookie contracts, and there's no worry that these guys are going to be leaving. We don't have that necessarily with the Chiefs, and so that is why I have Patrick Mahomes as my QB2. If you have him as your QB1, I totally agree with you on that point. I just couldn't do it for this video because the slander in the comment section was just going to be too harsh. And so, of course, my QB1 is going to be Josh Allen. Back in 2019, I made the dumbest trade in one of my one quarterback leagues. I just I don't know, it was my first full season of actually doing Dynasty, and you just learn things as you continue to play Dynasty fantasy football. I traded Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and a first-round pick, which ended up being the 112 for Patrick Mahomes. Looking back, I could have just kept Josh Allen and been off in a better spot, especially for this last year, as he was the QB1 on a points-per-game basis, averaging 24.6 fantasy points per game. I don't really know what to go over the fact because the stats are just freaking amazing. Had 36 passing touchdowns, put him at QB7, but he did have 6 rushing touchdowns, which was the QB3 on a rushing touchdowns. He had 122 carries, which put him as the number 3 quarterback on a carries basis. Josh Allen carries the ball. Josh Allen is a Konami code quarterback, and Josh Allen is also super young. He is only 26 years old, so you have endless possibilities here with Josh Allen. The torch from Brady and Rodgers has been passed to Mahomes and Allen, and I'm just excited for the future. The AFC is just going to be a nightmare on a year-to-year basis to get into the playoffs, so I'm excited for a lot of shootouts, and I think that's really going to help a lot of these young quarterbacks as they continue to have these shootouts, continue to just ramp up their stats, and as they're just competing against each other, because they all want to be the best quarterback. So Dynasty Fantasy Football, hard to evaluate quarterbacks. I hope you got a little bit out of this video. Feel free to send me a message if you have any trade questions. We'd be happy to answer them. And as always, we're releasing content Monday through Friday, so releasing another video tomorrow. We're going to do my tight end rankings. I would appreciate if you would like and subscribe. Put that content on. I'm at 20 subscribers right now, so trying to get to 40 by the end of this week. We'll see if that happens. If not, not going to worry, but we're going to continue grinding, putting out this good content for you guys. And if you have any ideas, would appreciate, because I'm over here, like I said, grinding to make this content, so would appreciate any thoughts as we continue on. Thanks so much.